Good morning. My name is Mike Zucker. I'm a career counselor, work with students in the College of Liberal and Fine Arts. I work here at UTSA at the University Career Center. I'm here this morning to discuss with you, as your graduate students getting ready to complete your program, make your transition into the world of work, I want to give you some tips and pointers regarding what steps to consider for the job search and how to most effectively put best foot forward with the interviewing process. So we're going to take some time to look at some slides and go over some information regarding, again, getting you geared up for your job search and how to effectively navigate the steps of preparing for an interview. Okay, so go ahead and move on to the first slide. So a lot of you guys have invested time, effort, energy, sacrifices into the completion of your graduate degree. Congratulations. So now you're probably asking yourself, okay, where do I start regarding sitting down and navigating the steps of a job search? The first thing you want to do is kind of hone in on the areas that you're targeting. One resource that we recommend you look at or consider, if you go to the UTSA University Career Center's website, www.utsa.edu/career center, all one word, there's a what can I do with my majors handout. So whatever graduate program you studied, you can go get some general insight regarding areas you should look at and consider in terms of what types of job titles and occupations may be available to you. So once you have a feel for the types of titles and positions you're going to be targeting, then you got to lay out the steps in regards to preparing for the interview. Now we've all heard this, almost painstakingly so. Where do I look for jobs? What's the best way to find positions? And just like you can read on the slide, networking is very influential along those lines. There's a statistic, if you go to NCDA, National Career Development Association, there's a statistic, roughly 70% of the positions are word of mouth, never posted. This slide reinforces that. So here on the slide I've given you 3 or 4 avenues regarding how you can go about conducting your networking steps. Now for those of you that aren't familiar, LinkedIn is a great professional networking tool, social media, and it's geared towards reaching out to contacts, finding mentors in different fields. You can conduct job searches. You can find companies that look for, recruit different areas or different responsibilities. Second, professional associations. Definitely want to look at whatever professional associations govern entrance into your profession of choice. If you need any of this information, contact the Career Center. They'll provide you with references regarding what type of professional associations to target and how to reach out to them. Now, as a graduate student, I went through my graduate curriculum. A resource that was seriously under-tapped and underutilized was career events. So as a recent grad, you have access to our career fairs, you have access to our interview schedules, you have access to on-campus recruitment information sessions. So there's a lot of career events on campus that represent a great opportunity to get some face time and do some networking with some employers or some organizations of interest. And lastly, you've developed phenomenal relationships and done well with your faculty and your professors. That's another resource you have in regards to your networking platform. So, best way to find positions. Yes, you do your research, your career exploration, but reaching out to some folks that work in the areas that you're interested in, one of the most influential steps in the process. Moving on. So, here are some resources you can use, a breakdown by sector. So again, just if you're still going through the process in terms of looking at where you can find positions that you're going to prepare for, these are some good tools for you. And it breaks it down by level. So you want to start with getting registered with our job bank. It's called Rowdy Jobs. Website's here available to you. And then we've given you some additional tools that break down various positions by level. It starts with federal, state, county, and city. You guys can read the slides. I won't read that stuff to you. But those are all resources you can use to go find positions that correspond to those levels highlighted. And then if you're not interested in doing federal work or government-related work, we've included some additional career exploration resources, some additional job search tools. Broken down private industry. So there's 3 or 4 private industry job search boards, recruiting tools. Then if you're interested in nonprofit work, social service, we've given you some resources that highlight jobs and potential openings within the nonprofit sector. You can look at those for some available positions as well. And then I know a lot of our graduate students come here with the notion of teaching. Higher ed jobs is a great resource regarding highlighting and identifying faculty-related positions that may be available to you. So I wanted to give you, okay, where do you start? Start by narrowing down the types of titles and areas you're interested in, and then we've given you some resources and tools you can use to highlight and look for, key in on those specific areas. Okay, now how can UTSA, how can the Career Center here serve to be of assistance? Excellent question. Oftentimes there's a misconception that, well, I need to look further than what's available at the university, and oftentimes, obviously, that's something that we'd recommend and advocate for, but don't discount what may be available to you here at your doorstep. So I want to spend a couple minutes discussing some of those potential opportunities. Now, if you haven't been registered with Rowdy Jobs, I highly recommend that you contact us, get registered with Rowdy Jobs. Rowdy Jobs is our job bank whereby it's a database, thousands of employers and postings get accounted for on the system, okay? So it's basically like Monster, Yahoo Hot Jobs, but it's employers only target UTSA students and alumni, okay? So you being a recent alumni, you have access to the database with thousands upon thousands of postings. Okay, and we have inactive, internship, volunteer, part-time, full-time, fellowship, everything in between. Under that we have information sessions. Information sessions, that's where employers and organizations come on out, speak to our students regarding here's what we're looking for, here's what we do, here's what we want to see in students via the application process. Okay? So it's a nice opportunity to get some tips regarding how you can present yourself, put best foot forward via the application process and the interview process. Now we have on-campus interviews. When I was completing my graduate curriculum, I wish someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, take advantage of on-campus interviews. Literally, hence the title, employers come out to campus in our office over at the Career Center and they interview students. So if you're interested in getting on the schedule, stay in tune with who's coming on campus and we can add you to those interview schedules. Then we can help to assist in arranging site visits. Employers oftentimes have us out, have students come out to their facility and take a look around, tour the areas. We have a mentor program that's available to you also through Rowdy Jobs. Right now we have roughly 63 mentors accounted for in the database, and they span a wider range of industries and career paths. And lastly, we have career fairs. I believe last semester we had 6 career fairs. We have them both specialized by college. We also have them all majors fair. We have an all majors fair. I believe the next one is coming up in February. So if you're interested, check out the website. So again, just some activities that may be available to you at UTSA. Okay, so now that you've honed in on the area and the type of position you're interested in, now that you've identified some groups to reach out to, some organizations that hire, some professional associations that you can utilize to network, now that you've taken care of those steps, what comes next? And we're all grown folks, I'm not going to read the slides to you, but you can see here's some things that go into consideration, need to be taken into consideration for the process. What we're going to spend our time focused on is the interview, how to go about effectively preparing for the interview. Okay, now this slide highlights some steps. Literally what components go into the interview process, and more importantly, how to effectively prepare for the interview process. And those are highlighted within these 6 bullet points here. What I want to spend time focusing on, because what I deem to be the most pertinent aspects of effectively preparing for the interview, research, and then we're going to talk about answering questions. Asking questions is important as well. And then the follow-up step can serve to distinguish you from your competition, certainly. Okay, like I said, in my opinion, research, preparation is the most important aspect of interviewing. Now, if you take nothing else from this presentation and my spending time with you this morning, I want you to focus on the notion that conducting effective research when sitting down to prepare for your interview is the most important thing you can get accomplished, okay? And there's numerous things that you want to target within your research, okay? 1, got to have a firm understanding regarding what it is that they're requiring of you. What are the demands of the position for which you're interviewing, okay? So you need to review the job description thoroughly, review the job posting thoroughly. 2 very important aspects. Because the purpose of that step is so you can connect your experiences, your skills, your qualifications to those responsibilities and those demands of the position. So you're going to have a firm grasp regarding what the job description and posting is looking for. Okay. Second to that, you're going to want to have a nice foundation of information that reinforces a genuine interest in the position and opportunity. Because the equation looks like this. The more you know about the company and the job, the inference can be made the more interested you are in the potential opportunity. So you need to go in there with tools in your tool belt that are company history, management structure, what the competitors are doing, trends going on in the fields. Those are all things that need to be researched and accounted for. Because the more you know about the industry, the more you know about the company, the more you know about the position, the more interested you are. If you're interested and enthusiastic, that makes a positive effect within the interview evaluation. Okay? That's why, bringing it back, reinforcing the notion that is preparation, research, one of the most important aspects of effectively preparing. Okay. Now, I did want to add one additional piece to the research component. As UTSA students and alumni, you have access to Reference USA. It's available on the library website under the databases. Via Reference USA, you can basically research any aspect of a business, an agency, or a company. Management structure, what their competitors are doing, revenue, profits, all of the above. So at your disposal, you have Reference USA through the library's website. Great tool you can use to conduct some research in preparing for the interviews. Ah, yes. The A word. Appearance. What do I wear in the interview? How important is appearance? Excellent questions to ask. Excellent questions to ask. So let's spend some time discussing. Okay. For men, and I'm going to digress a bit and read some slides. You're going to want to wear a dark conservative business suit. I get that question a lot. Gray, navy, black, which is most proper? We get some advice, some feedback from some of our employers that say black is a bit too formal, more along the lines of black tie event, tux. So they are on the side of caution, prefer charcoal gray, navy. Not to get that particular specific, but dark conservative business suit. Excuse me, long sleeve dress shirt, obviously long sleeve dress shirt, ideally white, pressed. You'll want to minimize conservative, again, err on the side of caution. But getting back to the research, if you do some research and the corporate culture of the organization you're targeting has a tendency to be a bit informal or lax, then you can obviously match your appearance based on the corporate culture. Now, we've all heard the notion, the moniker that is dress for the position you aspire to, not the position for which you're interviewing. Take that into consideration, obviously. Color coordinate the tie. Conservative. Again, conservative will be the overriding theme when we go through these bullet points. Conservative will be the overriding theme. Shined. Shined is important. Shined is important. Side note, if you're struggling and you have an interview coming up and you need to get your shoes tended to, we have some polish over at the Career Center. Stop by, ask the front desk. We'll be able to help you out. Matching dress belt, dark socks. Don't want to be the white socks guy. There's always the white socks guy. Don't want to be the white socks guy. Well-groomed. Should I shave? Get a haircut? Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, we're trying to make a positive first impression. Excuse me. In appearance for the ladies, a lot of the same things apply. Again, in general, the overriding theme is going to be conservative dress, conservative attire. The question I always get, should I wear a skirt suit or a pantsuit? We've heard employers give feedback regarding both directions. One is not more correct than the other. If you do wear a skirt, 2 inches above or below the knees, no more or less. No open heel or open-toed shoes, something that needs to be harped on. Minimize the effects of jewelry and perfume. Minimize the effects of jewelry and perfume as well. Okay. Couldn't get this far in an institution of higher learning without a question. But fortunately, it's multiple choice. So according to industrial psychologists, what % of any interview is visual? What % of any interview is visual? And I believe this statistic is dated from a 2007 study. Needless to say, what % of any interview is visual? Correct answer. 55%. 55% of any interview is visual. Reinforces the notion that physical appearance does hold weight and is a factor that gets evaluated in making the hiring decision. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay. Also, according to industrial psychologists, if you make a poor first impression, how many subsequent interactions does it take with that person to overcome the initial bad impression? Now, you might be asking yourself, Well, it doesn't really matter because if I bomb the interview, I'm not going to get numerous opportunities. But just to reinforce the importance of that initial positive impression, 12. But you only get one. So what are some tips? What are some pointers regarding how I can effectively handle my nonverbal communication? Nonverbal communication. And a lot of these components of the process team, these apply to the introductory phase of the interview. These nonverbals apply to the introductory phase of the interview. So what can we take from that? Well, you're going to be sitting in the lobby. By the way, side note, 15 minutes early is on time. 15 minutes early is on time. If you're not aware as to the location, if you're not aware as to the directions, test drive evening prior. Test drive evening prior. Okay, so you're going to arrive 15 minutes early. You're going to politely check in with the admin, let the admin know you're here for your interview. And they're going to have you sit, wait for the interviewer to greet you. In doing so, you're going to go over your prepared notes that you've found via your research, and you're going to go over the questions that you want to ask that you've generated via your research. We'll talk about that in the future. So while you're looking over your notes, you're in the lobby, you're professionally dressed, you're waiting for the interviewer to greet you. They come up. Mr. Zucker, are you ready for your interview? Absolutely. First thing you do, eye contact. Nice smile. Stand up out of your chair, extend your hand. Nice firm handshake. Direct eye contact, smile. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me this morning. Look forward to our time together. Then they're going to escort you back, get you settled, give you an overview regarding what to expect, what to anticipate in terms of your time together for the afternoon. And then obviously they're going to start rattling off some questions. So here we're going to go over how do I effectively answer the questions? What content do I emphasize within my responses? We're going to do so highlighting some sample questions. Now, the interviewer typically takes time to get settled, wants to establish some rapport, so they want to give you an opportunity to talk about the thing you're most familiar with, yourself. Now, this is tricky. Because immediately, based on your response and your content, you'll be able to wave the flag to the interviewer that screams, you are prepared for your interview or you are not prepared for your interview. Now let's take a second to look at an effective response. First, prepared, second, unprepared. Okay, now you'll hear, so while I'm getting settled here, start us off, take a couple minutes to tell me about yourself. Now there's a bunch of directions you can take the response to that question, obviously. Now they know a prepared interviewer keeps that focused around the position, okay? So let's talk about it. I want you to think about it as a four-sided picture frame. Four-sided picture frame, okay? So when you tell me about yourself. 1, additional skills and interests, okay? Additional skills and interests. 2, work experience, previous work-related history, okay? 3, career-related goals and interests. Career-related goals and interests. 4, academic background, academic history, academic skills. Okay? So a four-sided picture frame. So now let's look. Pick a position. Let's just say I'm interning for a graphic design position, or I'm interviewing for a graphic design position with a public relations firm. So then they're going to give me the question, well, tell me about yourself. Okay, my name's Mike Zucker. I recently graduated with a master's degree in communication. I developed skills related to handling applications like Flash, Photoshop, Dreamweaver. I have a strong interest in doing design work leading to multimedia outlets. And lastly, my work history, I have previous experience in customer service. I interned 1 semester at a public relations firm where I was able to develop a lot of their marketing materials. And I volunteered for 3 years with Meals on Wheels. So four-sided picture frame, a bit sporadic, it was off the top of the head, but you can see how it keeps everything related to the position and how you have prepared yourself to meet the demands of the position. academic background, work experience, additional interests and skills, and career goals. Sorry, I should have added it in the slide for you. So another technique that employers are going to look at, so we've gone through the introductory phases. We've gone through the nonverbals. We've gone through the handshake. We've gone through the eye contact. We've gone through the posture. By the way, to include posture, when you sit down, elbows on the handles, lean forward, screams conveys attentiveness and engagement. Okay? Be aware of your posture. Up, lean forward, elbows on the armrests, attentive, engaged. So we've gone through the nonverbals, we've gone through the opening question a bit, tell me about yourself. Now we're going to go into behavioral interviewing. Now the premise of behavioral interviewing, okay, basically they're trying to look for situations and scenarios that you've been in the past. Reason being, how you function in previous situations gives some insight, indicators regarding how you're going to function in future situations. So the premise behind behavioral interviewing, previous behavior indicates future performance. So they're going to ask you some questions that are conducive to behavioral interviewing. For instance, give me an example of a time you put in extra effort to complete a task. So now, you could easily just start listing examples of times you put in extra effort to complete a task. But there's a formula that I want you to utilize in addressing behavioral interview questions. We'll speak to that formula. Now the formula, side note, when I was an undergraduate back in the Ice Ages, 2000, I went to the Career Center, I did a mock interview. The thing that I took away from that mock interview that I still utilize and implement today is to come up and utilize specific concrete examples of past instances, okay? Now this formula will help you identify how to effectively account for those specific instances of your utilization of those skills. So you had the behavioral interviewing question, example of a time you put in extra effort to complete a task. Then you utilize the CAR method. CAR stands for circumstance, action, result. So what you need to do is lay out the circumstance. Well, I was in a group for experimental psychology, and in the last minute, 2 of my group members got sick. The day of the presentation came, they weren't able to show up. Circumstance. Action. So what I did, I had them send me their work, I incorporated it into our presentation, I incorporated it into our content. That's the action I took. Result being, I was able to present their work, our group never missed a hitch, and we got an A on the project. Circumstance, action, result. So you always want to lay out specific instances utilizing this formula. Again, CAR method stands for circumstance, action, result. So let's review. The 2 most important things that I want you to take from this presentation thus far. 1, effectively preparing for the interview process is started with research. Research, research, research. We talked about some things that you should target via your research. 2, provide specific examples in interview content utilizing the CAR method. Circumstance, action, result. Moving on. Okay, now this one, the competency that's being assessed is multitasking, your ability to handle numerous responsibilities at the same time. So now the question, describe a time when you had to do many things all at once. Now, us being recent college graduates, we've been doing this, juggling this skill set for 4, 5, 6 years oftentimes. And this brings me back to a point I'd like to drive home. All the blood, sweat, and tears that is you getting your degree, your undergraduate degree, your graduate degree, your practicums, your internships, everything that you had to go through. All of those experiences constitute excellent examples you can draw from via the interview process. So when students sit down to sell and market their academics, oftentimes it takes up 3, 4, 5 lines on the resume. Where I went to school, what I studied, what my GPA was, where I graduated, or when I graduated. And that mirrors itself in the interview process. There's a misconception that a lot of the content's got to come from my work history and my previous involvement on site, so to speak. Well, you've developed a ton of skills, experiences, and qualifications in the classroom. So when you have an opportunity to highlight those instances, those projects, you can draw from those to respond to your behavioral interview questions. I think it's important to reinforce that message. You can draw from your academics in providing specific, tangible instances. Okay, I think that's an important piece to cover. So to reinforce that, a time when you had to do many things all at once. Well, let's see. As college graduates, we work, we maintain our studies, we invest in our studies, we do well academically, sometimes we have additional responsibilities, extracurricular involvement, and we're able to maintain our sanity all at the same time. Important accomplishments to account for. So, getting back to the formula, we'd provide car, specific circumstance. Well, let's just say, one of my children was sick, I had to get him to school, I had a group project, and I had to work an 8-hour shift that evening. So here's how I handled everything. I prioritized my time, I laid out my schedule, I was able to maintain all my responsibilities, I followed up with my child care, so on and so forth. Then the result being, I was able to work my shift, got the most out of my assignment, kids were attended to, so on and so forth. General example I know, but see how it brings it back, specific circumstance, action, result. Circumstance, action, result. So here's some additional behavioral interviewing questions that you're likely to see within the interview process. Describe a situation when you were a part of a team. How did you contribute to the overall goal? Second, give an example of a situation in which you provided a solution to a problem. Third, tell me about a time you were on a team and one of the members wasn't carrying his or her own weight. Circumstance, action, result. Provide specific instances. Okay, so one of the questions that we always get, students come in, I'm graduating, I got to get prepped up for the interview process. What are some questions I should be aware of? What are some questions they're going to fire at me? And obviously it's difficult to anticipate what questions each interviewer is going to utilize. But there are some common themes that are accounted for. Now this question here, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Okay, there's a good chance you're going to get asked that question. And what they're looking for is your career goals. And more importantly, what they're looking for to see if your career goals align with the organization and what they're looking to fill. Oftentimes that's not the case. So how do you address that question? Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Now, if the position that you are interviewing for today relates and aligns with where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, obviously convey those messages. Obviously reinforce that point. Because that's a stepping stone. That's a stepping stone. But what tends to happen is I need a job. So I'm going to interview for this position even though realistically 5 to 10 years down the line, I'm more interested in doing something over here. So how do I make that apparent? So the advice that we give to students, the advice that I give to students, is focus on the development of key skills. Focus on the development of key skills. So let's just say you're interviewing, you want to go into management, and you're interviewing for a customer service intensive position. And in 5 years, you want to be in a management related capacity. So what you want to focus on is, I want to be in a position whereby I can effectively utilize the extensive customer service skills that I'll be gaining as a result of your position, utilize those skills to effectively manage internal customers, external constituents, better meet the needs of the individuals being serviced, so on and so forth. Kind of sporadic, but what I want you to take from that is you can focus on the attainment and development of key skills that you can utilize in your position or for your career-related goals down the line. Getting back to why it's important to have a firm understanding of the job description, you see the skills you'll be developing, and then you make it apparent how those skills are related to what you want to do on a long-term basis, okay? That way you're conveying, articulating that the position you're applying for fits into what you want to do on a long-term basis, and you're not simply interviewing for a paycheck. Some more common questions that you may run into. Oh yes. What made you decide to apply with fill in the company name? That's where getting back to your company research. You should be able to identify key aspects of the company's history, of the company's background, of the company's mission, of the company's vision statement that make it a good connection with yourself, your values, your interests, your career goals. So bring it back to the research in regards to identifying why you're interested in the organization. The second bullet point, we get questions about this all the time. What is your greatest strength? For greatest strength, you want to find something, again, highlight, provide specific, tangible instances of your utilization of those strengths. Just don't list characteristics that you feel you bring to the table, okay? Now, weaknesses. I've been on a couple hiring committees, had seen some interesting responses to the weakness question. One student, I'm not quite sure, I'm not aware of my weaknesses. Obviously, self-awareness be a weakness to account for. Another student highlights weaknesses that have no relation to the position. You don't want to do that. You want to be honest, you want to be genuine, okay? So account for an honest, genuine weakness that is relatively related to the position. For instance, let's just say organization. Organization. I struggle with organization. Now, one, offer up a weakness. Offer up a specific weakness, okay? What you always want to do is highlight what you're doing to compensate for said weakness. So if your weakness is organization, you want to focus on strategies you've taken on to become better organized. If your weakness is time management, you want to focus on strategies you've taken on to become a more effective manager of your time. If your weakness is public speaking, you want to focus on strategies you've taken on to become a better public speaker. So keep the weakness pertinent to the position, de-emphasize the weakness, always account for a strategy regarding what you're doing to compensate for said weakness. Okay? We all have weaknesses. One of the things that they're going to be looking for within your response is self-awareness. Self-awareness. Moving on to the next sample question. Why should we hire you over other candidates? Again, bring it back to your understanding and awareness of the demands of the position. Be able to make concrete connections between how what you've done has effectively prepared you for what they're looking for you to do, and reinforce that by reiterating how interested you are in the opportunity based on your knowledge of and awareness of what the company does, stands for, and what their competitors are doing. Again, reinforcing the importance of that research team, reinforcing the importance of that research. Okay. So what are some general keys to success, some pointers, some things you can take with you? We talked about it. Remember, I focused on how, from my mock interview as an undergraduate, specifics. Provide specific answers, specific examples, specific instances, okay? Now, what tends to happen? If you don't get specific, oftentimes students have a tendency to present too philosophical with their responses regarding how I would handle it, what I'd like to see, ideally if this were the case. In reality, they want to see specifics. How have you done it in the past? How would you do it? Provide specific, concrete details. Number 2 is rather intuitive. You read that. Give successful answers. Duh. I'm not going to spend time wasting the interviewer's time focusing on things that I've done ineffectively. We know that. But you'd be amazed how many times students provide a specific answer, provide a scenario, but they never bring it back to a successful result. So always bring it back to a successful result. Remember, the circumstance, action, result method. The CAR method, circumstance, action, result. So this second bullet point reinforces successful results you've attained in your previous endeavors. Always bring it back to successful results. Okay. Now, one of the more important components of the interview process is opportunity for you to ask questions of the interviewer. And most of you have been in interviews in some form or fashion in the past. And indeed, the interview will conclude and they'll ask you, so you have any questions for us? Now remember, I talked about one of the most important things that you need to convey in your allotted time with that interviewer is a genuine interest and enthusiasm. So the more you know about the company, the more excited you are to be a part of the interview. The more you convey and express a positive attitude with your handshake and your eye contact and your posture. Those things go a long way to scream engaged and enthusiastic. So what's another component, another aspect of reiterating and conveying that strong sense of enthusiasm? The questions that you decide to ask of the interviewer. Because they will give you an opportunity to say, you have any questions for us? Now I want you to stop and think how detrimental it would be if you said, no, I think we covered everything. A, give that some consideration. And then B, I want you to consider how detrimental it would be if the interviewer could tell that you didn't take time to develop questions you sincerely wanted answers to. And that happens. Because what tends to happen is students think I have a good list of questions generated here. And then you go on the company's website and the answer to the questions are on the first 3 paragraphs, which screams you didn't do your research. Getting back to the most important aspect of effectively preparing for the interview team, I cannot stress it enough, it's the research that you do. You will get a question like, why do you want to work for Enterprise? Tell me about the history of our company. The content to those responses is directly correlated with the research you've done. Okay? So, another thing that you can get out of effectively researching is to generate some good questions to ask the interviewers. So what are some good questions to ask the interviewers? First of all, you're going to scream, yes, I most certainly have questions to ask. Now here are some sample questions that we're going to go over. Hopefully you're picking up on a trend. Hopefully you're picking up on a trend here. Yellow, probably not the best questions to ask. Blue, acceptable. Now I want you to think to yourself, why are the yellow questions probably not the best questions to ask? Remember, some of the things that we want to convey and get across: genuine enthusiasm, interest, investment in the opportunity. So if you're wondering when the heck you can get out of there as soon as possible, aka the first question, might not convey that genuine interest and enthusiasm in the position. Compare and contrast that with the second bullet point. Now, some industries are going to be more conducive to this line of questioning. I can't stress that enough. If you're going into the business sector, highly competitive, profit-driven, great performance, where can I advance to? Understandable. If you're going into social service or government, how great performance is measured may vary. So that might be a good question to ask. How do you measure and evaluate great performance? With great performance, where can I be with your company in 5 years? Screams, if I come in and I give it my all, how are you going to invest back in myself? Important things to be aware of. Next question, what's your turnover rate? Basically that means, is there going to be someone ready to replace me? Or will I be able to convince you that I'm doing my job well long enough to not replace me? Other inferences can be made. Obviously, but if you're interested in the turnover rate of the organization or the employer, probably doesn't scream invested in the long-term opportunity. Again, can you discuss your long-range growth and expansion plans in more detail? Now, what would be nice is if through your research, you come in with some insight regarding their long-range growth and expansion plans, and then just ask them to clarify based on what you've already concluded or discovered. Vacation and sick days policy, how often will I not have to be here, is what the inference we can make from that. Asking the interviewer about their career path. I go back and forth with that regarding, is it an effective use of the interviewer's time? Now, if you're applying for an HR position, that might suffice more as an informational interview question than an actual interview question, which would make it okay. But if this individual's career path doesn't align or overlap with anything you're interviewing for, how is that useful information for you to have? So what are some things that we can look at? Well, we can look at the management structure. And we can ask questions regarding how the management structure impacts and influences my performance, how my performance is going to be evaluated. Another thing we can research in generating some sample questions is what competitors are doing. I was working with a young lady. She was going for a position with the Child Development Center here at UTSA. And so one of the things that she did to prepare for her interview was to research USAA's child daycare facilities that their employees get to utilize. So she compared and contrasted what those facilities have with the currently available facilities here at UTSA, and then generated some questions regarding where the facilities are going, doing some good research. Lastly, have you ever fired someone for tardiness? I don't even think that necessarily needs comment, team. Okay, closing the interview. So let's review. Let's take a couple seconds to review. You've researched. You've dressed appropriately. You've shown up 15 minutes early. You've been attentive to your nonverbals. You've gone over the CAR method. You've generated a good list of questions to ask based on your research using Reference USA. The content of your responses, perfect, utilizing the CAR method, giving specific examples. Now what comes next? How do you effectively close the interview? So the first thing you want to do, just like the bullet point indicates, what's the next step in the process? And a good interviewer team will tell you the whole time, be completely open with you regarding what the next step is, and should identify a time frame that corresponds with the next step. Always get a business card. Side note, you're going to want to always get a business card of any individual you get to interact with via the interview process, okay? If it's a panel, if it's an admin, if they bring you in to meet a manager, if they take you on an office tour, that might be a bit more difficult. Try to at least get some names. Reason being, once you get the contact information, you can follow up, thank them for their time, effort, and energy in showing you around, giving you some information. Excuse me. Interview closing is always an excellent opportunity to strongly reiterate your interest in the position. Strongly reiterate your interest in the position. Let them know, I feel this position would be a good fit for me based on my 3 years experience in psychology labs, based on my extensive research work, based on my customer service history. This position would be a great fit for me, and I'd love to be a part of the organization. Thanks again for your time. I look forward to hearing from you. And again, be attentive to your nonverbals. Be attentive to your nonverbals. Nice posture, handshake, eye contact, big smile, confidence. At this point, you will have presented well, prepared effectively, knocked them dead, dressed to the nines, and now closed well. Ah yes, effective follow-up. So the reason you get all the business cards, the reason you remember names is so you can follow up effectively. So what does effective follow-up look like? One standardized universal email that goes out to each staff member on the same email could work. Not the recommended form, but could work. What I've seen, what I think works the best, thank you notes, thank you cards, handwritten. Jot down a nice brief comment regarding your specific interaction with that individual. Okay? Provide the thank you note, follow up accordingly. Now, if you can't take the note, you didn't take notes to leave, an email will suffice. It's completely okay. But try to include a personal touch. Try to include a personal touch. But what you want to do within the thank you note, thanks again for taking the opportunity to chat with me. I appreciate your time. I'd like to reiterate my interest in the position. I look forward to hearing from you. It's always useful to identify things that people do incorrectly. Okay, so if you're given some paperwork to fill out, and they're giving you, you have to account for an overview of your experience, never reference them to the resume. Always provide a detailed account of the information they're looking for. Second bullet point reads, never be late, obviously. Rather intuitive stuff, team. But what I want you to take from that, 15 minutes early is on time. 15 minutes early is on time. I've seen this. One of our biggest recruiters was telling me a story about being in an interview. The interviewee asked if they could take a phone call in the middle of the interview. Needless to say, results didn't really dictate that person was extended an offer. To include, never take a cell phone to an interview, never take a person, never have someone waiting for you. Seen both of those, etiquettes breached. Now, also, don't take your bag. If you come into our office for an on-campus interview, don't take your backpack. If you do, leave it up at the front with us. Never smoke prior to an interview, never chew gum during an interview, very straightforward, rather intuitive. Yes. This first bullet point I think is interesting. So when there's an evaluation being made, obviously the hiring manager, that's the individual that whose evaluation holds the most weight. But in conducting an interview, there's a lot of individuals that have a say, so to speak. Now, one of those individuals that has a say oftentimes is the admin, or the person that's the face of the office. So in your interaction with that individual, while on the surface it might not appear to be influential within the interview at all, how you interact with that person may get back to the hiring manager. So you want to be on your P's and Q's when interacting with the receptionist and the admin. Because if it's a positive interaction, it can work wonders for you. And if it's a negative interaction, it can be highly influential regarding how that person does or does not advocate for your being brought into the office. Never ask for a refreshment. Oftentimes one might be offered to you. I've seen this next one. Individual bring folks into the lobby to sit with them while they conduct their interview. Next bullet point's rather intuitive. Never ask for your performance evaluation at the conclusion of the interview. Lastly, very intuitive. Lashing out in anger won't do anything positive. Okay, so just to reiterate some of the services and some of the resources that may be available to you via the UTSA Career Center. We have our individual career counseling sessions. And again, if you're still in the process of identifying what employers you're going to target or what employers hire for a specific area, function, or role, come out and attend information sessions with our office, okay? Being that we're in between semesters, there's going to be some downtime, but as the semester unfolds, a lot more information sessions are going to be being offered. Networking events, professional development training, dining etiquette. Some interviews are given over the dining table. We have a nice presentation if you're interested in something along those lines. If you need help gearing up your resume, getting that thing fine-tuned up to speed. If you want to apply some of these techniques in an actual interview setting, we can help you with mock interviews, something I highly recommend you take advantage of. Contact us, we'll get you scheduled. And again, through Rowdy Jobs, you have postings, you have mentors, you have on-campus interviews, everything in between. And then on our website, we have a ton of those industry-specific job search tools you can go look at. I referenced them in the first couple slides. If you come in for a mock interview, you will be qualified for on-campus interviews. So what we're doing with on-campus interviews, we've got some feedback in the past from our employers, from our organizations, from our agencies, say, hey, students need to give interview prep some attention before they sit down across from us. So we develop these measures in the form of mock interviews, in the form of professional interviewing 101 workshops. If you attend one of those two, you're qualified to sign up for on-campus interviews. And if you go to this website right here, it'll walk you through that process. And again, my name's Mike Zucker. I'm a career counselor, work with students in the College of Liberal and Fine Arts. My email address is included there. If you have any questions, any follow-up regarding your viewing the presentation, go ahead and shoot me an email. Let me know what I can do to assist. Here to be of assistance. Thanks for your effort, attention, energy. Have a nice afternoon.